This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's first on-demand workshop, How to Become a Coffee Consultant. Available now online for you to learn at your own pace with a certificate available upon completion. Click the link in the show notes to access today for just €50. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 2 of our 5-part series with Aaron from Blendin Coffee Club. Aaron, we are talking about what the role of a general manager is. And in this episode of the series, we're going to talk about the challenge of staff retention, because this is a problem that pretty much every single cafe owner I've spoken to over the last 3 years is just screaming about. Now, it's a problem pre-pandemic. The pandemic seemed to have accelerated the exodus of people out of our industry, and the generation that came up, that is aging into our industry now, Gen Z, are not finding this work appealing. So staff retention becomes a really important skill set for a general manager. How do you approach staff retention challenges?
Yeah, it's so funny to kind of think about staff retention from day one when you onboard somebody. But I think that it really kind of starts there. Once they're hired and they're on board, I feel like it is just starting with maybe even in the interview process, just starting with a open conversation, an honest conversation about what would you like to, get from the company? Like, what is it that got you interested in working here? How can we pursue those goals, your personal goals, what you're wanting to get out of the working at, say, Blendin Coffee Club, for example. What are you wanting to get out of this experience? For some, it's I'm in school still. I'm looking for some way to get money, and I have been a barista in the past and have some experience. Sometimes it's a conversation goes where it's I have absolutely nothing about coffee. But I'm super interested in learning more about it. And I have this maybe deep down passion for it. I haven't quite discovered it, but I want to explore that. So I think having that kind of open and honest conversation with the staff in terms of, what can we do for you? I think in terms of someone who's in it for the long run, I think they'll be very honest with you if that's what they're looking for. They're saying, I'm willing to put down roots somewhere. I would like to stay with the company for a long time. But on the flip side of the token, you also, I wouldn't say that it's a majority of the time, but, you have employees that are looking for maybe something shorter term or something that they can, do while they're in school, for example. I feel like this is it isn't uncommon to see a barista that it is currently also going to school and pursuing something. We have a few of our staff members that are doing the same thing. But what I've found is whether an employee is, pursuing or still in school, or if someone's pursuing coffee as a long term, there's still a lot of things that we can work together with to kind of move towards, the company's goals and their own personal goals. So yeah, I think it just starts with kind of that open conversation just from the get-go. That way everybody's on the same page. And when you're able to understand, what it is that an employee is looking for, I think you'll be able to tailor their experience to their what they're doing in work. Yeah.
Tell me, do you care what your employees, like potential employees, do you care what their values are? Are you at interview, are you looking to see if they're aligned from a values perspective with the company, or is it more of what they want to achieve while they're working for the company?
I think values is important. So it does come up in the interview process. We kind of ask some questions around those, like, are you looking for something that, maybe has work-life balance, or are you really customer service oriented, kind of the things that drive that person. We do look at that. But I mean, I think on the same token, being able to kind of, I guess, understand where they're coming from and what they're looking to get, I think that's really important. So did that answer the
Mm.
question?
Yeah. The reason I say that is because, as you mentioned, some people are just looking for a job. They just want to make cash, right?
Mhm.
And then there are some people who want to put down roots. What differentiates, because we all business owners need people who just want to come in and do the work. You know, they're not
Mhm.
interested in, I need a 10-year plan and et cetera, et cetera. How do you figure out which of those employees are the right employees? Because you're not necessarily looking for long-term retention, but if they're
Mhm.
good workers, you do want to keep them for as long as they want to stay. If is values the thing that helps you differentiate that, or is something else?
I think it's so something that I think about during that interview process, and we talk about it extensively, is you know, are they passionate about coffee? Are they curious about coffee? What is it that is, why did they come to the interview essentially?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of from the coffee side of things. Because we can teach people to be great baristas. Um,
Mm.
but if someone,
Yeah.
they're not really looking for, I mean, what's a good way to put it? If they're passionate about coffee and they don't have the experience, that's perfectly fine with us. Like we're not necessarily looking for somebody with tons of experience. But if someone is passionate about coffee or even curious about coffee and just wants to learn more and grow in
Mm-hmm.
coffee, we do like to have people on the team that have that kind of mindset,
Right.
because in the environment that we work in, we're a bunch of coffee nerds, and I feel like
Mm.
we've kind of surrounded ourselves with coffee nerds. But everyone kind of has some different backgrounds, whether they were a bartender or they worked in food service or whatever their background was. We kind of all have this shared passion for coffee and just learning more about it. So I think during our interview process, we try to see if people, you know, are interested and willing to learn more about coffee.
Why do you think people stay? Why do you think is it because of the company? Is it because of the people? Is it because of the coffee? Why do people stay at Blendin?
Yeah, so I kind of, I want to say I did an informal polling and,
Okay,
and just
great.
kind of and just kind of asked around and got some thoughts from some of the employees in terms of what it is that keeps them around. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just to be perfectly blunt, they I'd say one of the top answers was they just love coming to work and being around the
Oh,
people that they're
wow.
working with. So I think when you're building a team and you have um, a team that can grow together and learn together and they enjoy being around each other, it makes coming to work a much more pleasurable experience. You go there and it's almost like going to hang out with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're still working, but there's no barrier for well, I don't get along with this person or whatever. It's kind of everyone is working towards the same goals. We're passionate about coffee. Our baristas hang out with each other outside of work, whether it's in the parking lot riding a skateboard or whatever.
Oh, wow.
They really are friends. So I think that's a big part of it, is just the team has been, they work really well together. They love being a part of the team. But I also think that a big part of it is also the education aspect that we have at Blendin Coffee Club.
Mm-hmm.
So those that are wanting to learn more about coffee, whether it's our sourcing practices or um, how to brew coffee. I mean, we really, really do take a deep dive into education in all different aspects of coffee, not just how to make latte art or how to pull shots of espresso. We regularly have quality control cuppings every week. And they're not mandatory. The production team is involved, the roasting team is involved, but it is not an uncommon sight that we'll have 4 or 5 baristas come in on their off day just because they want to be around everyone and cup the coffee together.
Wow.
So the cupping room can get very full very quickly. But I think it's really neat to see those kinds of things when you have involvement and engagement from the team, because they really want to be there and just be a part of the kind of the coffee experience that we're creating there.
That's the signs of a healthy culture. And we are going to have an episode of this series about cultivating a good culture, but when people are taking time out of their own personal time to contribute to their career and to the success of the workplace and the success of the company, something's working right there, and that's something to be really proud of. Like when we had Siobhan Bromley on the podcast recently, we were talking about staff retention in particular and how important it is. And how do you know whether you're doing the right things to cultivate the right kind of culture? That right there is one of the things to tell you that you're doing something right as a general manager and creating the right kind of environment. When people are happy to take from their own time, particularly these days, when people are prepared to take from their own time to learn for their own career, but also conspire to the success of the company when they're not getting compensated for it, that's a really healthy indicator. And surely you have to be proud of that as a general manager, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really is. It's like I said, it's great to see a full covering room, when, it's a really great.
Yeah, nice. What do you think is your number one tip for people who are trying to improve staff retention in a cafe?
So in terms of staff retention, if I had to get out a number one tip, I'd say just checking up on your employees. They're kind of making, obviously everyone is coming to work and they're being paid to be there, but sometimes just checking in with them, seeing how they're doing, just keeping up with what's going on in their lives. I think that's really important. It shows obviously that you care about the employees for one, but then it by investing in them and the things that they're doing and just being attentive to kind of what their needs are at the moment or that week, they could be having a rough week, with family or anything. Just checking in on employees, I think that's super important. As a general manager, it keeps you engaged and just keeping a pulse on everyone, making sure that everyone's doing well. I think that's important.
It sounds like making sure your staff feel seen is important.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Which sets us up pretty perfectly for our next conversation, which is about personal and professional development for staff in today's market, because never before have we seen the kind of requirements that the workforce require from employers as we do with this generation that's aging into the industry. So it's very interesting to kind of explore it from the GM's perspective. So join us in the next episode, folks, as we explore that. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everybody. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.